I'm sitting here with a linguist. I had no idea. I didn't know you were, but I didn't know that you were a wordsmith.
Call Jiggy right now. 267-22-JIGGY.
Hey Jiggy, what's happening, man? Reminds me of that David Bowie song. Jiggy play guitar. It's a great name, man. Thanks so much for having me on the show.
Presenting
I'm Mike Massey, and you can catch me on Jiggy Jag TV and see a few of my tricks up there. Thank you very much.
Jiggy Jaguar.
I never knew what freedom was until I saw you lose yours.
Hell of a deal. It is the world famous Jiggy Jaguar radio broadcast, coast to coast and border to border on iHeartRadio today, AMFM247.com. Tune in, iTunes, and of course, Spotify. I'm not getting that Joe Rogan money. They're not going to build me a red bunker. But we do all right here. Get a hold of us online, JiggyJaguar.com. Tattoo us on your brain over there at JiggyJaguar.com. We are going to go to Rabbi Michael Lerner here in just a few seconds. We're going to see what we can pull off here.
Hello.
Rabbi, how are you? It is James giving you a call for your radio interview. How are you, sir?
Okay, how are you, James?
Pretty good, actually. Give me a few seconds here. I've got to find my other two, I guess you would call them colleagues. And we will get them into the mix here. I just refer to them as rabble-rousers. But, but a lot of people refer to them as my colleagues. So, but we have got a great guest joining us today. He is joining us here on our big broadcast, and a tremendous guest. And the rabbi joins us today here on our big program, and I believe we're going to be joined here, hopefully, by the great Dan Perkins and IQ Al Rizzoli. Hopefully they will get in with us here, and we will see what happens. But
who are they?
Dan Perkins, who is a best-selling author and a good friend, a world traveler, Mr. IQ Al Rizzoli, who I believe has just picked up on the old Skip Skype. IQ, can you hear me, sir?
Yes, can you hear me?
Look at that. And we have got a great guest with us today. He to start our program here, our first guest is Rabbi Michael Lerner. He has got a tremendous new book. It is called Revolutionary Love, a political manifesto to heal and transform the world. And Rabbi, tell me an IQ here a little bit about your book.
Well, the book comes out of my experience in trying to understand why many people who are best served economically by the progressive forces nevertheless move to the right. And what I learned was that many people who are happy to get what I'll call the objective caring in the form of various economic benefits are nevertheless turned off by liberal and progressive politics because they feel that a lot of people in that world disrespect them. Now that feeling is partly based on some outrageous stuff that has happened, in which somebody like Hillary Clinton talks about everybody who's not on their side as being a bundle of deplorables, and also by the development of a subtext in liberal and progressive thought that says that anybody who is a man is really a suspect for sexism, and anybody who is white is a suspect of racism. Now, of course, there are sexists and there are racists, but when you label everybody in that way, many people feel like, hey, you're not looking at my life. And so I interviewed many of these people. I created an organization called the Institute for Labor and Mental Health about 40 years ago, and we were very lucky to receive a major research grant from the National Institute of Mental Health. And so we interviewed thousands and thousands of middle-income working people, and we came to understand that although many people think, oh, well, the masses, all they care about is money, that actually what we discovered is that the masses care also about respect, caring, and a sense of meaning and purpose for their lives that would transcend, that would get more than simply the bottom line of money and power. They wanted a life that they wanted a work life that seemed to contribute something to the well-being of the planet. So, and they rarely get that. Now, part of the reason they rarely get that is because we live in a class-structured society in which a few people have vastly disproportionate amounts of wealth, and they use that wealth to control the economy and the media and many of the other institutions of daily life. But that is often hidden from people, and instead, what most of us are taught is that we're living in a meritocracy, and meritocracy, that is, where you end up in your life is a function not of how good you are, how much merit you have, how smart you are, or how hard you've worked. Well, of course, when we talk to middle-income working people, we found out that they worked just as hard as any rich person was. But studies have been done subsequently have shown that intelligence and hard work are distributed equally to the bottom 20% of owners of wealth as to the top 20% of owners of wealth, that there's no real difference in terms of smarts or of how hard people work. In fact, the very top doesn't work very hard at all, because many of them inherit their wealth.
Well, and that is actually an interesting point. We've got our great guest today. Rabbi Michael Lerner is with us. Revolutionary Love, a political manifesto, heal and transform the world. It presents a strategy that's not only useful for 2020, but a guide for the next 30 years as the focus inevitably turns towards saving the life support system of Earth. And joining us today is the rabbi, also IQ Al-Rizzoli, and also just joining us now, our good friend, best-selling author, Mr. Dan Perkins. Dan is busier than a fish in a hurricane with his with his constant writings and books and everything. And sitting here and listening to this, Dan, I want to start with you. What do you make of what some of what the rabbi was saying here? A little bit about his book.
Well, I'm glad I live in America, where the opportunity for the rabbi to have his voice heard, regardless of whether people agree or disagree with him, it's important. It's getting more and more difficult for people to have their voices heard in the United States, because if we don't follow a particular agenda, there's an awful lot of people who don't want to have us talk.
Yes.
And we see that every day. The idea that if you are not black, whatever you have to say doesn't matter, doesn't create an environment that the rabbi seems to be looking for.
Yes.
Yet it's the reality of what's going on in the world. And
that's why this book is very critical of those tendencies in the liberal and progressive world that have demonized anybody who isn't sharing our line or our view, and why we've been and so this book argues that the liberal and progressive forces have to change the way they operate, and that they need to move from a narrow economic vision to a heart-based vision, a vision that says that we need a new bottom line in this society, a bottom line in which institutions get judged efficient, rational, and productive, not solely to the extent that they maximize money or power, but also, and most importantly, to the extent that they maximize human capacity to be loving and caring, kind and generous, ethically and environmentally sensitive, able to respond to other human beings as embodiments of the sacred, and not just for looking at them in terms of what we can get from them, and looking at the earth not simply from the standpoint of, is there something here I can turn into a commodity and make a buck out of, but also with awe and wonder and radical amazement at the grandeur of this universe and the mystery of life.
Damn.
But let me ask you a specific question. In the history of man, whenever socialists have tried to take control of the world or countries, where have they ever succeeded with your ideology?
Well, first of all, they don't have my ideology. That's the problem. They have focused on those socialist movements have been focused on maximizing people's economic well-being, but they have not spoken to the spiritual and psychological needs of people, and often have ignored those. And that's the problem. You can't build an alternative society simply on the basis of economic well-being. You have to also build it on the basis of love and caring and recognizing other human beings as embodiments of the sacred. There is no socialist movement or socialist society that has ever embraced the kind of vision that I'm putting forward in my book, Revolutionary Love.
But they never will, because what they believe is absolutely diametrically opposed to what you believe, and to not understand that. I mean, you talk about the concentration of wealth. I would suggest to you, Rabbi, if you look at what's going on in the streets, and you look at the number of people that are being arrested and are protesting under the auspices of Black Lives Matter, it isn't black people. It's white college-age students, primarily women, who are on the lines, who are doing a lot of the damage and the destruction. We see the number of women being invested in the protests all over the country dramatically increasing.
Yes.
And so when you have, excuse me, Rabbi, when we have a situation where, as I said, you're certainly entitled to your opinion, right or wrong, you're entitled to it. But to look at what's going on in our society today and think that we can go back to the 60s of love and peace and everybody will be happy is not practical. In the real world, it might be something you want to strive for, and that's admirable that you want to do that. But from a practical standpoint, these people basically are about power and control.
Yeah, how do you combat that, Rabbi?
Yeah, that's not really true. Most of the people on the street, and I don't know when was the last time you started to interview people who are demonstrating in support of an end to police violence towards African Americans. But if you would talk to them, you would find that very few of them are looking for power for themselves. Most of them are motivated by a deep caring for the well-being of people who have been first enslaved, brought here forcibly, then subjected to 150 years of economic and political inequality and harassment and treatment terribly by the society. Now, that's what motivates them. Speak to them. They are not. Most of them are not violent people. And I want to tell you something about my own experience, because I was an activist in the 60s, and I was eventually indicted for a demonstration that I helped organize. I was charged with using the facilities of interstate commerce with the intent of inciting to riot. That was the telephone that I was supposed. And then secondly, having a conspiracy to destroy federal property, because our demonstration was at the federal courthouse in Seattle, where I was a professor at the University of Washington, and people, after the police attacked the demonstrators, which is exactly how it happened because I was there and witnessed it, there were rocks thrown at the courthouse windows and paint thrown on the windows. Well, so of course, this event led Seattle to the federal government to step in and say, okay, you're going to jail for organizing all this. Although I had never thrown a rock or never done any act of destruction of property. Anyway, the next day, we had a meeting of our leadership group, about 150 of the people who were part of that 2000 demonstration. And some guy gets up. Since I was seen as the leader, the media interviewed me, and I said, I'm really sorry about that destruction of property. However, today in Vietnam, we destroyed at least 150 times the amount of property that demonstration did. Anyway, the next day, I'm there at our meeting, and some guy gets up and says, who gave Professor Lerner the right to apologize for us? We were exactly right to do that. Well, it turned out that when the trial started, that guy was one of many provocateurs who were hired by the government to and were actually on the opposite side. They didn't want violence. They wanted to provoke violence. So, but the critical moment here in the trial was when one of the undercover agents who was testifying against us acknowledged, and this is a guy who had been who had volunteered for the FBI, that the FBI had paid for the paint and brought it there, and that the FBI had physically brought stones down to the area of the demonstration because there are no stones in downtown Seattle. So when the jury heard this, there was a gasp, and it was clear that as the jury was listened to after the trial, and they all said, no, we would never have voted for to convict these people. But what I want to say to you is that a lot of what you're seeing is people who are provocateurs, who have the desire to paint all of the demonstrators as violent, when on the contrary, and you say it yourself, these are women. How many women are intrinsically violent? It's just not who they are. They're not even rewarded to be violent in this society. So
that's why it's so dramatic when they are the ones that are doing it, Rabbi. And
there are very, very few people in those demonstrations who engage in any kind of act of property destruction.
Well, I've seen the video, and as far as your question about when's the last time I interviewed anybody, how about yesterday? But my point here is,
which demonstration were you at yesterday? Which demonstration?
Excuse me.
Which demonstration were you at?
Excuse me.
Yeah, go ahead.
Show me a little respect if you want to talk about respect. Now,
yes, go ahead. Go for it.
The idea that I want to talk about something that happened 60 years ago and create the reality of what it is today. Rabbi, you talked about the prejudice against the black people. Why aren't you talking about the tens of thousands of people that are dying in the black community that are being killed not by white people, but by black people? Where is the consternation to the black people who are murdering their own? Where is the consternation that the black women have the highest abortion rate, killing their children, than any other percentage of our population? Those are issues when you start killing your own, and you want to talk about the number of white people that have killed black people and ignore the number of black people that have been killed, then there's something wrong with the ideology, because you're saying that it's okay for black people to kill each other. Well, it isn't. It isn't okay.
When did I say that? When did you hear me say that it's okay for black people to kill black people?
We're talking about.
You're making this up. You're talking to some other fantasy. You're not talking to me as a human being. I never said anything of the sort.
Did you not say that we suffered under the police brutality, the murder of black people? Didn't you say that on
absolutely.
This? Why didn't you?
But that doesn't mean that I say that it's okay for black people to kill black people. Where did you hear me say that? I never said that.
Do you think that more black people have killed black people than police have killed black people?
You know, when people are in situations of extreme poverty, they act to feed their own families sometimes by robbing other people. And that happens. There's no question about it. It happens in every society where you've got the kind of economic inequality that we have in this society. And it's not just blacks against blacks. It's white people against white people also killing lots. There are more murders in the United States from white people killing white people than there are from black people killing black people.
Wow, that's a great insight. There's, what is it, 4 times as many white people as there are black people in the country? So wouldn't you expect that the murder rate would be higher in terms of people killed white people because there's 4 times as many? The point is, Doctor, Rabbi, you're not addressing the issue. Barack Obama and Joe Biden in their 8 years, what did they do? What did they do to try and stop the violence of black people killing black people in the president's hometown? Nothing.
Well,
I'm not
fans of Obama and what he did either. So
are you a fan of Biden?
What?
Are you a fan?
Well, I hope that people vote for Biden because we have a literal nutcase in the White House, but not because I think that he's going to help very much. Just that he will at least avoid the extreme craziness of a person who has denied, on the record, that there was a serious threat from the pandemic, even while privately acknowledging to Woodward that he knew that it was a real threat. I mean, come on, what kind of a craziness is this to have this kind of a liar, public liar, and consistently telling one story, and every time he's confronted with his lie, he doesn't care. He just says another one. And every day, the newspapers now finally have been printing the lies. So yeah, I hope that Biden wins, but not because I think he's going to do very much good, but at least he'll do a lot less evil.
Well, you talk about lying. The Democratic candidate for president said about 2 weeks ago, when the Atlantic magazine published an article that said that the president condemned the people who were in the cemeteries as veterans as losers, and he didn't say it. What did Joe Biden say? Joe Biden said he was so outraged that the president should apologize to all the Gold Star families and Silver families and the American people for his outrageous behavior. The editor of the Atlantic was on Face the Nation on Sunday and admitted that perhaps the story wasn't true. So what has Joe Biden? Has he done anything? Has he retracted his accusations against the president? Or is this another example of the Democrats using fake news, meaning that the charge is more important than the truth?
Well, I'm not aware of what Biden said or what Trump said in this instance, but I would say
you're not aware
that we have a huge list of lies that the president has made over the course of the past 4 years. Biden is not.
What you said.
What?
I just want to make sure I understood what you said. You said, quote, you were not aware of anything that Joe Biden said about this issue. Is that correct?
I didn't follow this particular issue, yes.
You didn't follow the story that was headlines that he turned around and made campaign ads? Your guy? You don't even know what he's saying?
He's not my guy. He's the lesser of two evils.
You supported him to want to be on the ticket. I noticed that IQ's on the
I
screen.
wanted him to be on the ticket. No,
Yes.
I would have preferred Bernie.
Well, and that was going to be my next question, Rabbi, and that is, do you think that if Biden happens to be elected, there's a lot of folks on the right wing and the right side of the aisle who keep calling Joe Biden and Kamala Harris progressives when in reality they are the furthest thing from progressives?
Yes, they are.
What do you make?
From progressives, exactly. They're closer to the people on the right than they are to the people on the left.
What you want to vote for?
Well, I'm saying that I'd rather have those people who I believe have good hearts but not so great heads than the ones who have bad hearts and bad heads, and that's the leadership we have right now.
Bad heads. That makes great sense. We're going to let the people run the country who have no clue what they're doing. That should be good for us. IQ, are you there?
Well, that's who we have right now.
No,
That's who we have right now. That's the people who run the country right now have no idea what they're doing. Do you know that the United States has the highest percentage of people who have died from this pandemic by far than all of Europe put together, which has the same population as the United States. When you put them together, they have a way lower level of deaths. Why is that? And the same thing with every other country. We are the worst. We have the highest percentage of people being killed because the president denied that there was a problem there, and still denies there's a problem.
The answer to your question, Rabbi, is because all those countries in Europe are socialist, and they dictate what the people have to do. Lack of freedom of choice. IQ, are you there?
IQ, do you have any comments there for the rabbi or Dan or anybody involved in this?
IQ.
Say that.
Yeah, Rabbi, question. Why is it that 70% of Jews who are among the most successful generally in America supporting the least important human being on the planet called Joe Biden?
The reason is because we have been, we are aware of what fascists do when they take power, and we identify with the struggles of people who are not so successful in a society where the stakes, where the whole thing is rigged in favor of the rich. We are not downtrodden here, but we have a good memory of the history of 2,000 years of living in oppressive situations in which we were the primary victim. And so we identify with the primary victims in this society. That's why.
Yeah, with all due respect, your background is not the same as the background of black people. The Jews were literally oppressed for 1,700 years by Christians, 1,400 years by Muslims. But you have succeeded. Why? Because you have a tradition to educate. The black people don't have that. This is not racism. Let's get this straight. I deal with facts. I come from the Middle East, by the way. I come from Iraq. So you can't say he's a racist white guy. No. I deal with facts. The reason the black people came to America, the only why they came to America is because the Muslims and the Arabs massacred their ancestors, and they destroyed 140 million Africans. So 14 million were shipped to the Americas. Only 5%, 700,000 landed in the United States of America. The Jews, when they arrived to America, were discriminated against. Even up to the 1950s and 60s, there were places in America, Jews and dogs not allowed. The Vietnamese who came to America, all the Southeast Asian people who came to America, they came with nothing, only the shirts on their back. They all succeeded. There is a reason. They educate people. And as Dan said, the number of American blacks who commit crime and the number of American blacks whose the women, 70% of them have got abortions. Did you know that 40 million abortions were committed in America? 40 million. You don't need people from outside America to come to work labor. 40 million people died in the United States out because of abortion. Trump doesn't support abortion. He's pro-life. Yeah. What did Trump do that is so egregious besides his lies? And he doesn't lie. He said, I remember when he was coming down the escalator in 2015, I was watching him from Europe. And I said, this is the man who should lead America. And he did. Whatever he promised, he kept. But the hatred of Trump is called the Trump derangement syndrome. And funnily enough, 70% of the Jews of America do so. The only people who are Jews in America who support Trump are the religious people. I wonder why. Could you explain that to me? Why the religious Jews support Trump while the not so religious Jews literally hate him. Could you explain that to me, please?
Well, first, let me explain to you about the situation, the difference in our situation between what happened to Jews through our history and what happened to blacks. Jews and were physically assaulted and killed, and as we know, 1 out of every 3 Jews was murdered during the Holocaust, and this was largely a result of 1,700 years, say, of Christian hatred of Jews and teaching hatred of Jews in their churches, and still even to this day, Christians read the book of John, the Gospel of John, that makes it sound as though the Jews really wanted to kill Jesus, which is just total baloney. But that's what they were taught and have been taught, and they killed us. But what they didn't do was, when we had our own, whenever we were living in ghettos, etc., they didn't come in and separate families. They didn't destroy family life. We had a strong family life so that those who survived the physical attacks could continue educating ourselves, reading, and hence we had a big advantage when we came to the United States, which is a country I greatly appreciate for their generosity of opening gates to us and to other refugees. But the African Americans were not, when they were forcibly brought here by the slave trade and then put into slavery, their families were systematically destroyed and their language was systematically destroyed. They were forced to learn our language, and then families were broken up. Every few years, families were broken up. The children sold to one slave owner. The wife sold to another slave owner. The husband sold to another slave owner. So that over the course of several hundred years, their family life was destroyed. And family is the key to economic and particularly to emotional stability. So that was a huge difference. Had that been done to the Jewish people for 300 or 400 years, I'm not sure we would have survived at all. But if we had survived, we would have certainly been not fundamentally different in our situation than the African Americans.
Well,
the African Americans had 150 years of non-slavery. What is the excuse?
We've run out of time here with the rabbi because our next guest, we've got our next guest on the line. Rabbi, before we let you go, mention the book and how we can find you online and everything.
Yeah. Well, the book is called Revolutionary Love, and it's got a lot more to say than I was able to say here, because here I was under assault rather than really asking what I believed in. But what I believed in is that we can build together a different kind of world than the world that we live in. And that one step in that direction is to help people understand that it's not their fault that they live in a society in which work is often oppressive and income is very hard, and in which unemployment is now at a very high level, and in which the leaders of the country have not a clue as to what they're doing. You find me online at Tikkun. That's the name of my magazine. TIKKUN.org. Tikkun.org. Tikkun is the Hebrew word. It means to heal, repair, and transform the world. Tikkun, TIKKUN.org. Thank you for having me on your program.
Well, Rabbi, I will be in touch. Thank you, sir. It's been an honor and a privilege. There he goes. Rabbi Michael Lerner with Revolutionary Love, a political manifesto. Heal and transform the world. And he was our first guest here on our big broadcast, and our second guest, which, couldn't be any different as far as political views. We have got our next guest. He is loaded for bear, Mr. Tim Constantine. And
the world we live in, what is he talking about? I hit the jackpot being born in this world at this moment in time. I couldn't be luckier.
Well, Tim, you missed the part about him calling the president a complete liar. You missed him talking about the fact that Joe Biden would not be his choice, but he'd be the lesser of two evils. You missed quite the conversation, sir.
I'm terribly sorry to have missed that, but I'm happy to be here with you now. Thank you for having me.
Now we've got Dan Perkins. Dan Perkins, our best-selling author friend, he is, as I say on many occasions, he's busier than a fish in a hurricane. And then we've got IQ Al Rizzoli, who IQ, I'm sure his hair was just igniting on fire, which is probably why we don't have the video up, because he doesn't want to show that on video.
Tim started with a blue shirt.
Yes. So, Tim...
It's great to see you, because I've had you on my show, but never visually. I have not physically looked at you while we were doing those interviews.
I know. Thank you for remembering.
So, Tim...
Like a whole week. Every week I get somebody that I've been on the show with. Good to see you again.
So, Tim, tell us about your latest book here, my friend, because it is a complete 180 in a different direction than our first guest. And... So break it down for us. Tell us all about it, my friend.
Sure. It's called White Guys Are Okay Too. And really the genesis of